Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing the AC side of the solar install for our Aspen Trail 1950BH. We were out and enjoying the trailer a few weeks back. We had the 12 volt system side working as well as the inverter working, but I hadn't wired anything in for it yet. So we could run stuff straight off the inverter, but that was it. And it worked great. The batteries never went, they never even hit 90% state of charge. And we had crappy weather, man. It was, we were out there for 4 days. It was cloudy all the time, a lot of rain. So definitely not optimal sun conditions. And still, by the time I woke up, the batteries were usually charged. So the only time they weren't already fully charged when I woke up was when I woke up especially early one morning. So they just hadn't had, you know, the whole hour they needed at most to charge up, and that was with the solar panels not making a lot of power. Anyways, so now the whole purpose of really doing this, expanding beyond my basic setup that I was using, was so that we could run the outdoor kitchen fridge, a little bar fridge that's in there, off the inverter and off the batteries. And also then we can, you know, charge devices a lot easier, stuff like that. So I'm hitting the point where I have that fridge out of its place. We're going to install new outlet there, so that we can run inverter power to the fridge. And then I'm also going to install another outlet in the pantry area of the outdoor kitchen, simply because I have to run the wires up that way anyways to utilize a pre-existing hole in the floor. And then I'm also going to install another 110 outlet right where the monitoring panel is, and where I'm going to install the inverter's remote switch and all that stuff. It's right at the foot of our bed. It'll allow us to charge devices and stuff there easily as well. So that's the basic plan. We're going to install 3 switches, a bunch of wiring, and or not 3 switches, 3 plugs, sorry, a bunch of wiring, and get that inverter power running to where we need it. So what I've picked up so far for this project, which should be everything I need, is some wire. So this happened to actually just pick up on sale. It is 12-3, so 12 gauge 3-stranded wire. It is actually stranded. It is not solid core, which is something I wanted. I actually wanted that because stranded wire is less prone to breakage due to flexing, stuff like that, and being that it's going to be in a moving trailer, it's just gonna be more reliable that way. And I'm also running it underneath the trailer for the length of the trailer, basically, to go from where the inverter is to where the outdoor kitchen is. So it needed to be strong and well shielded as well. So this is basically, it's the same wire you'd use to make an extension cord or rewire a cord on, like they say, on a drill or a generator, common uses, stuff like that. Depending on the data sheets I've looked at, it should be good for either 20 to 25 amps at 110 voltage. So that's more than my inverter can even supply, so we're going to be plenty good. Yeah, that's basically it. It's going to be nice and strong. It's good for forget what it is. It's water resistant, oil resistant, stuff like that. 105 degrees Celsius dry, 60 degrees Celsius in the water apparently. Doesn't say, I don't think I actually saw on it what the cold temperature is, but it's supposed to be good for cold temperatures too, is what I was reading. So we're going with that. And then we got a couple different boxes here. So the plugs that come in an RV generally, what they have is they have the box pretty much like built right into the back of the plug itself, and they do that so that they can keep the profile of the plug very small to fit in the wall of the RV, because the walls on an RV are usually like, what, about 2 inches thick, 1.5 inches thick, because they use 2x2s. And so something like this is not going to fit inside that wall. I'm lucky enough, I'm not putting any plugs in where the like in a wall. Everywhere where they're going, they have a fairly large cavity in behind them, so I can use standard household plugs and boxes. These ones are a pinch style box, basically, or I've heard them being called as a cut-in box. So if your wall's already there and you're wiring in another set of plugs or a switch or whatever, basically you cut a hole through your drywall, put it in, and then you use those two screws here to sandwich this, and it sandwiches on the drywall and holds it in place, and there's one on top, one on the bottom. This is the same kind of concept that the RV plugs use, and they just sandwich it in with the on the paneling. So if the RV plugs one do that, and they're not even as nice as this, they don't have as much holding surface area, then I figure these ones will probably work better, if not just as easily as well. I did go with these so that they can actually tie in the wires and clamp them in, so that if the wire gets pulled on, whatever, hopefully it'll help it. And these two are going places where I really don't have any framing to connect them to, so I have to rely on the paneling to hold it in place. This one is going to be the one that's on the foot of my bed, where I don't have a not that I don't have, it's going to be used a lot. Stuff's going to be constantly plugged into it, pulled out of it, stuff like that. And it just so happens is I can utilize the board that all the solar gear is mounted to hold this in place. So basically it goes up against the board here. You throw in 1, 2, whole bunch of screws if you want, and then it's going to hold there. This is intended to where these tabs butt up against the drywall. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to hopefully cut the hole just to the inside of this lip and butt that right up against the paneling. And then when I screw the plug in place, it'll actually help sandwich this to the paneling as well. Plus it's going to be mounted to the wood, kind of like that. If you imagine that's a piece of wood, it's going to sandwich there, and that'll just give it lots of strength, so that for high usage areas, where the other ones, well, one of these metal ones is going to be stuck behind the fridge. And so basically once I plug the fridge in and put the fridge back in place, you're never even going to see it again. So obviously it doesn't really need to be all that strong, because it's not going to see a lot of use. The other one, it's going to see a bit more use, and I'm kind of trying to think of a way where I can potentially brace it better, but we'll see how it works out when I get there. And then you need your plugs. So I bought black ones because that's what the trailer currently has, so it'll keep it nice. And the ones on the trailer are currently squared as well, so I went with that. And then your face plates, you know, for each of the switches. And then because the inverter takes a standard plug, I bought these. I'm gonna wire, so basically gonna wire that cable on into these, plug them into the inverter, run the wire to where I need it, and then use standard house wiring methods to hook up the switches, or the plugs. I keep calling them switches, I have no idea why. Electrical tape, honestly, I was running out. This was the last bit of a roll that I had, so I bought 10 rolls. It was a little cheaper to buy it as 10 rolls all at once instead of 10 rolls individually. And then, as this should be the last of the wiring in the trailer, I bought some extending foam. This is pest block foam, and this is just gonna be used to close up the holes in the floor insulation and the floor board, where I had to cut the holes open to feed the wires through. The manufacturer uses this stuff to seal up the holes that they put in, so it should work fine for me to use it as well. And so that's basically it. That's really all you need. Obviously standard wiring tools, screwdrivers, strippers, stuff like that, and then you're off to the races. The hardest part is planning on how you're going to run this stuff. So I'll get over to the trailer here and show you what I came up with for that. Okay, we're at the trailer now, and this is the outdoor kitchen area right here. I got a vehicle coming, so I'm trying not to get them in the view here. Let's see here. This is basically the outdoor kitchen. It's you know, simple little shelf or a pantry type idea. A propane stove, and then this is where the bar fridge sits. Is right in here, and in here is the plug that the bar fridge plugs into right here. What I'm going to do is, there's about, I don't know, I think about 3 inches from the back of the fridge where it sits. They got a couple of screw holes right here that they screw it down with. But there's about three and a half, something like that. I forget what it is, between the back of the fridge and the back of the compartment here. So I'm gonna mount the new plug, the inverter plug, in probably around down here. And then on the other side, for the pantry, they have a plug right here. Now that's running off of shore power, so I'm going to install another one beside it that's going to be running inverter power. And then we got inverter power back here as well, because the one that I install for the fridge, we're not going to have access to once the fridge is in there. Like, the fridge barely fits through this hole. Like, it actually took some finagling to get it out. So that's going to give us some inverter power back here. Now again, I don't have a very big inverter, so you know, it's not like we can run a lot, but we can run some things. Basically anything that doesn't have a heater element will be fine. Also, currently our battery bank is fairly small. It's 210 amp hours of 2.6 volt batteries. So lead acids too, so we can only use about 105 amp hours of that capacity. So this is where the majority of the stuff is, just as we go inside the trailer. And there's my monitor. The plug is going to go in right about here, and then my inverter switch, I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put that yet. First I wasn't going to install it at all, but this is the bed, and it's actually quite a bit of a pain in the butt to open this up to turn that inverter on. So I am going to actually mount the inverter switch there. Right down here is the hole in the floor that I put in so I could run all the cabling in and out. And all those cables are pretty much going up to the battery bank, or are going up to the battery bank right now. And then the AC one will run out there to run to the back of the trailer for the fridge. The bar fridge is right here. It's not a big fridge. It's I want to say 1.2, 1.3 cubic foot, something like that. The sticker on the back says it's 75 watts. Let's see if I can get all that in there. I actually ran a smart plug on it that monitors power usage, and it actually consistently uses 45 watts when it's running. It does spike for startup to roughly about 3 times that, but once it's stabilized, which is all of 1-2 seconds, then it does 45 watts. So between that and the inverter itself, its consumption, internal consumption, we are, I don't know, we're probably say 50-55 watts being used there. I don't know for sure. I haven't actually checked those numbers yet as to exactly what that inverter is going to use. Obviously that's going to depend on what kind of draws we have on it as well, but it really shouldn't be much more than that. Now the fridge is 45 watts, 45 watt hours. Well, that's measured wattage, so that's only when it's running. Assume a 50% duty cycle. Obviously that's going to change depending on how often you're into the fridge and the ambient temperature. But you know, I don't know, rough out at a 50% duty cycle, that basically means we're going to be using like 22.5 watt hours. So really consumption is very low. It's nothing of the 75 watts that it says on the thing, on the sticker there. I'm assuming they're, I don't know, maybe they're averaging that with the spike loads, or maybe they're assuming that it's running full time. But you know, a fridge doesn't run full time. They got a duty cycle, and I'm going to say this one's probably 50% or less, especially once it's already cold. So no big deal there. Basically with the math, and I could do the math for you, but maybe in another video while I do a you know, how's it working type video. For now, we're just going to worry about the install. So the wire is going to go down through that hole. So obviously he's just going to plug into the inverter on the back side there, and then run down that hole, and then it's going to follow the frame rails all the way down. It's I actually have holes in the frame rails all the way down, except for where the black and gray water tanks are being held up by those frame rails, so I'll have to suspend it just below those frame rails, but no big deal. Those are actually up a little bit from the trailer's main frame rail, so they'll still be well out of the way. Let me get this mattress out of the way, and I actually need a light for you guys to be able to see here. Let's do this. Okay, one sec here, and I'm just going to get to the back of the trailer. Now, where this is all going is in the lower bunk area is actually over top of it. So right here, this is a storage area. That's the hot water tank area. And then right here is the area where the current plug is for the fridge, for if you were going to use shore power. So these are the types of plugs I was talking about that they use. Just like that. Maybe I can get you some more light in there. One sec. There's a whole bunch more light. See if this will work. Yeah, it should work okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So that's the type of plugs that they actually use. It kind of has the box and plug all built into one, and then it uses those little levers there to hold it on to the paneling. You know, so that's where I say, like, those steel ones are probably going to be a little better. And this is dead space in here, like literally dead space. They didn't make it so that it could be used as storage or anything. In the future, if I go to lithium batteries, this could be a good place for me to relocate them, and some of the other gear. This is kind of a hidden spot that I never thought of looking at, but this is where I'm going to install the inverter plug for the fridge. Then if we go up this way, let me get everything ready, and I'll actually got to climb into this storage area here so I can show you where the wires are going to come into. Okay, I am now inside the storage area of the bunks here. Again, hot water tank area, plumbing going underneath the shower. But there's this little area up against this back wall that has a cavity in here. And I'm just going to set you there and move the light in. And right there you can see the wires coming up through the floor. That is actually the wires for the tail light. All the internal wiring here for this other plug runs through the walls, and I'm not going to be digging through the walls here to try to fish through that and stuff. So I'm going to go through that pre-existing hole. I hope that hole is big enough for me to work with the wire that I bought. I think it's pretty close. If not, hopefully I can get in there with a drill and maybe drill it out a bit. Honestly, it looks like they just took a freaking, I don't know, a chisel or something to it. So my plan is run the wire down through there, and then one of the plugs will be right here beside this pre-existing plug, and then I'll run wire that's daisy chained off of that plug around to where the plug for the fridge is going to be installed. And that is that. So I'm gonna get into this, dig into it. It's gonna be way too hard to be working in here and filming at the same time. So I am just gonna get to it, and then I can show you the progress as I go. Okay, I got the wire ran for the main run anyways. It's going to the back of the trailer. You can see it's sticking out just right there. It's going down through the floor, running along the frame rail, and then coming back up where all my solar wires are running. Right there, you can see the yellow line right here, and I'm basically going to run it between the charge controller and the inverter over to this side. We'll get it clamped into place once I get both plugs done, and then it just plugs into right there. So we have this plug adapter, or wireable extension cord plug basically, that we're gonna wire onto the end of that, and then it's simply going to plug right on into the inverter. That'll get us power to the back, and then I just have to cut the holes for the plugs back there. The wire I bought was just shy of 25 feet. It was what was it, 7.5 meters. Turned out to probably not be enough. It ran the length of the trailer, which is what I ultimately needed it to do. This is heavy gauge insulated wire to run down the exterior of the trailer. Obviously, up in the front frame rails, it's going to be introduced to a lot of garbage, moisture, all that, mud, dirt, whatever. Once back inside the trailer, I can use just standard household, what do you call it, like 12-3 wire to do that, and that's actually what they use in the trailer now anyways. So I don't know if I got any examples of it here. Nothing visible. So, you know, whatever, you probably saw it in the other videos, but it's going to be inside the trailer, so it's protected from the elements. So I can go pick up some of that. It's a fair bit cheaper than this insulated stuff that I ran down the frame rail, so not a big deal. On top of that, actually, I think I actually have an extension cord that I ran over with the lawnmower one time, or no, I hit it with a snowblower, and so I might just cut a section out of that, because that's, you know, it's no good anyway. So take a section of that and finish off what I have to do. But for now, what I'm going to do is get this plug wired, get it situated in here, and then basically I got to run all the excess to the back of the trailer, and you know, secure it in place, zip tie it and all that along the length of the trailer, and then I can get into actually setting up the plugs at the back of the trailer as well as the plug here, and install the remote switch for the inverter, which is just currently sitting right there and has way more cable than I need, because all it's going to do is go here somewhere. And yeah, and then we're looking pretty good. So let's get on to setting up this plug. Okay, so I've stripped off about 1.5 inches of the outer insulation, just using a razor knife. Just go around nice and even, and light, so that you don't cut into the actual wire sheathing. And then you just want to cut off this insulation here. So I'm just trying to bunch that up in a way that I can do this in a, there we go, not bad. That won't get in the way. Okay, then we got our 3 strands. So we got black, white, and green. So green, so that's your ground, goes to the green screw on the plug, and that actually even has a marker here, it says ground. White is neutral, and black is hot. White goes to silver, so there's a silver screw. Black goes to gold, there's a gold screw. These prongs are the same size. If they weren't the same size, your neutral, so white wire, would go to the prong that is thicker, wider. And your black would go to the narrow one. When you're doing a plug, you will have that option there. Like it will have a slot for a wider prong and a slot for a thinner prong. So your neutral, your white, would go to the thicker or the wider slot for the bigger prong. Now this is 12 gauge wires, so I'm using my strippers here, and we're just going to use the 12 gauge. And it doesn't have to go in there very far. You're just kind of sandwiching it right here between this metal piece here, the shinier, the silver one, and the gold prong on the inside. So it only has to be, you know, maybe 5 millimeters long, or I don't know, what would that be, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. So really doesn't need to be much, kind of just like that. Let's see how that fits, see if I did enough or not. And when I shove it in, it goes in a nice long ways. Oh, get this wire back. So what we're looking for is basically when you shove it in there, see if I can get this in here, work with my twist. When you shove it in there, you want no strands poking out. You want the insulation going all the way to the clamp, and you want enough wire in there for it to clamp securely. So just like that. I'm going to do that for all 3 of these, and then tighten down those clamps. Okay, we got all those stripped now. Now we can't just go putting those in on the prongs first. Is what we got to do is put the body on. So this has a clamp right here that's going to clamp the casing, the full-on chunk of the cable, and then these wires are going to go all the way through that hole there, and then they're just going to basically, the little bit of excess that you're going to have, they're just going to bunch up in the back there. But your mechanical connection is this clamp right here holding on to the whole casing. So I'm going to move you back just a little bit more. Hopefully you can see this well. Change the angle a little bit. And so now all I'm doing is feeding these through. Try to get those through that hole nice and cleanly. A little bit of a tip is I probably would have fed that through before stripping the wire, because now I'm going to end up with the strands of wire kind of they're probably going to get a little messed up as I try to shove them through there, so that kind of sucks, but just have to straighten them out after. And that is a tight little fit for all 3 strands, or all 3 conductors. But there it is. That part is done. I'm going to tighten down this clamp to secure that in place. I got this clamp down nice and tight right now. It's clamping down on top of the sheathing, the insulation fibers that were in there. Everything, that's your mechanical connection. That is making it so this plug will not come off, and so that there's no tension placed on these wires, on these electrical connections that you're going to make here, right? So there's always 2 connections to every electrical joint: mechanical connection, electrical connection. You don't want to be relying on your electrical connection for your mechanical strength. So now I'm just going to hook up these wires, pinch them in here, get them all connected, put this together. This is going to take me a little while. As you can see, there's not a lot of room in here for a lot of extra wires, so these tails are very short. So this is going to take me a little while, but I'll get it in there. I'll get it all together and then I'll come back. I got this all together. That's how it looks. One lesson learned, it took me a bit to actually, figure it out, is these screws on the end here are not equally spaced. So that only goes into the body one way alone. So don't actually clamp down your clamp before you get it all wired and this put in place, because I ended up having to undo the clamp so that I could turn the whole body to get that these screw holes to line up properly. But after a bit of playing around and realizing that those aren't evenly spaced, I figured it out. So, moment of truth, do we plug this in the inverter and turn the inverter on and see if it goes boom or not? I think I'm going to do it. We'll see. So, let's just put her down here. You guys hang out down here. Hopefully you can see this. Let's move you up a little closer. Yeah. Alright, we'll plug her into the far one, I guess. I'll get the wires out of the way for you. Kind of like that. Inverter is currently off. There'll be a little light here when it's on, and plus this will all light up. So let's turn the inverter on. Well, inverter is on. Green light right there. These lights are all on, and so far doesn't look like it's showing any fault codes. We're at 12.5 volts. So looks like my plug works. So that'll be one of them there, and the other one right there. And I think I might actually run into a problem with fitting two of these on this inverter. Yeah, that might end up being a problem. These plugs might be a little too large. Well, we'll figure it out. Okay, here we are underneath the trailer here. I'm just running all this line back to the back of the trailer and zip tying it up in place, stuff like that. You can see there it's running through some pre-existing holes in the frame rail, along with some pre-existing coach wiring that was done by the manufacturer. And you can see there where all the wires for the whole solar system and whatnot that I've installed go up through the floor. That'll get sealed off with spray foam, kind of like they do over there for those holes, and basically just run it on down through the frame rails here. Let me see if I can hold this camera straight up, so instead of giving you motion sickness. But so kind of going through the frame rail. The only frame rails that don't have pre-existing holes in them are the ones that were specifically installed to put the gray and black tanks in to brace them. So they're just going to kind of go underneath those, which is fine. And then it goes back up into the floor at the very back of the RV here. I don't have grommets the right size for these holes right now, so what I'm using is a bit of split wire loom, and just putting that there to give it some extra abrasion resistance. I will be eventually getting some rubber grommets that I can put in place there. Just split them and put them in place. You can see, like, all over the trailer here, like there's some of the coach wiring there that was installed by the manufacturer, as well as down over there and everywhere else, and up there too. And they never used any grommets through any of the frame rails either. Now they're not real sharp. They're actually fairly dull. But just as that extra bit of precaution, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to get to this, and I'll meet you back up either up top or right at the back of the coach here as I finish up. So this here is a closer up image of how each of these are going to look at every one of these frame rails. So you got the split wire loom over top of the wire going through the hole, and it's zip tied on both sides just to help keep it closed up, and then one big zip tie pinching that wire into the frame, like onto the frame rail there, and holding it in place. And yeah, and that's how she'll look basically all the way down the trailer, is, you know, similar to that. But I got a few more frame rails to work on here, so okay, go and get those done. I'm working on just getting the electrical boxes mounted and installed here. Here's the one that's going to be right up front at the front door. Here's the front door of the trailer. And there's the electrical or the switch or plug. Keep calling them switches. There's the plug. I've already kind of, you know, just mounted the plug just for visual here, but it's not wired or anything yet. The box is right there. This one was really easy. Found out what actually cuts this paneling really well is the like Rototool drywall guide cutters. Works fantastic. Actually rips through this paneling really easy. Use a slow speed so you can control it. It's awesome. So on this one here, because I was able to actually mount the box ahead of cutting the hole, I mounted it first, and then I used the large Rototool that I have, and with a cutting depth guide on it, and was able to cut that. And because the drywall ones have like a guided tip on them, they don't, the tip itself doesn't cut. It's the first whatever 1/8 of an inch maybe is strictly just guide, and then it hits the actual cutting edge. And so you just run it around that box just like you would for drywall. Boom, done. Clean, absolutely perfect. And it didn't even chip up the I was worried it would chip the face of the paneling. Didn't do that, so I didn't even have to tape over it to make sure that it wouldn't chip up. And yeah, nice clean install. Now for the ones in the back, the one for the bar fridge and for the extra pantry, hopefully you can hear me here. I'm going to talk a little closer to the camera. I'll get inside the box here. This will help. So this is where the fridge is. Hopefully there's still enough light. So this one's running on 110 shore power. That one's basically not going to be used anymore ever. And then right here I installed the box for the inverter power, and that's what we're going to plug the fridge into from now on. Obviously it's just the box there right now. It will have a, you know, I'm going to wire in a double gang plug there, or a double plug, I don't know what it's called really, and put a face on it. And then the one for the pantry area, so we can, you know, whatever, charge toys or batteries or whatever we want here. So we still have the one here that's gonna use 110. Oh, that didn't hold. So we still have this one here that we're gonna use 110 on. And so whenever we got shore power or generator running, we have that. And then this is the hole for the inverter power plug. And what I did is I just used this on top of a piece of card and made a template for it, and then used the Rototool with because I can't get in the big tool with the depth guide, and well, I don't have a box to run around either like I did with the one on the inside. I just used the pen style tip. I'll show it to you here in a minute. And then just basically follow my pattern, and this fits in here absolutely perfect. And then so it just goes in just like that. Obviously I'll take the paper off first, and then it uses these to pinch it in place from the back side, and get the bottom one in when I put the box in, and then the other one I have to go to the back side and drop it in and get the screw started. And then that's that. So then we have inverter power and shore power at the pantry. We have the fridge running off the inverter full time, but like if we have shore power, the converter in the trailer is going to charge keep the batteries charged for us, and then yeah, we're just re-inverting that power back to 110 for the fridge. But like we're not going to pull that fridge out and put it back every time we want to switch between inverter and 110 power. So, but at least this way I haven't touched the trailer wiring at all in this case. And so everything can always be put back the way it was if you know, whenever I decide to sell this, if the people want to or whatever, and it makes it very easy for me to make changes without having to replace everything, the converter and all that. So I don't know, I like this idea, I like this system. I think it's going to work well. I'm going to get these all done and wired in, and then I'll be back. So I forgot there is, I was gonna show you the pen adapter that I use for RotoZip. So I have two. They're both Mastercraft versions of them, of the rotary tools here. Let me get this camera set down here. All right, so I have two of these. They're both Mastercraft versions. This one's straight up Mastercraft. The other one is the Mastercraft Maximum Series one. The other one is like the larger RotoZip. Like that thing can do everything, even plunge rotering, all that stuff. I've used it for quite a few things, even an angle grinder, all that. Very versatile, very handy tool. That's the one I used with the depth guide for the plug at the front door. For these two plugs, I went with this little guy. Now this one I use because it actually has slower speeds. My bigger one, its slowest speed is about this one's medium speed. It's a fast tool. This one I can get some slower speeds out of, and then I just use this pen tool. I have one for both of them, but you know, use this pen tool. And this is that bit that I use there. It's a drywall guide bit, I believe they call it. See how the first section here has no cutting teeth whatsoever. It's pointed, so like when you're using drywall, do it on drywall, you can just plunge it right through the drywall and then start cutting. For this, I had to drill a pilot hole first to get this bit in, and then I can start cutting. And then the rest of it here, so from basically from about here to here, is all cutting edge. And yeah, it just cuts while it spins, and you have to watch the counter rotation, or the way it wants to bite, I guess, as you're cutting through the paneling. You got to make sure that you're countering that with your movement, otherwise it'll walk away on you and you're going to end up with a nasty mess that you don't want to have to try to fix. Basically you'd have to replace your paneling or put in some ugly patch or something. So, but other than that, and that's why I wanted to use the slower speed one too, because it makes it easier to counter that. But other than that, that's what I used. It worked fantastic. It worked way better than the abrasive disc that I used when I did the battery monitor install. When I did that, the abrasive disc obviously uses friction, so it created a lot of smoke, set off the fire alarm a few times, stuff like that. This creates a lot of dust, a lot of sawdust, but big deal. Shop vac, vacuum it up, no big deal. All right, well, it is time for me to get into doing some wiring here. So I am now done wiring in all of the inverter powered plugs. Everything's basically done. The only thing I have left to do is put the fridge back in the cabinet where it belongs. I currently have it right here inside the trailer, and I've been doing some testing with it, just seeing how it's running. So I got to put that back into the outdoor kitchen cabinet area where it belongs, and then I have to spray foam the access holes that I have in the floor. The one here at the main area where like the inverter and controller, charge controller and stuff are. So I got the hole there that I was using to get all the wires in and out of the trailer. And then there's one in the back that I used that the manufacturer actually put in place to get the tail light wires in where they needed them. And they never sealed it from the factory, so I'll seal it up. it's just using spray foam, just spraying in some spray foam in where that insulation is and all that, and where the barrier is, the vapor barrier or water barrier, whatever it is, it's holding all the insulation up against the floor. Just kind of filling that in. That's what the manufacturer did for all the other access holes where they brought in and out the water lines and power themselves. So I'm just going to do the same thing. Other than that, so here's the inverter plugs here. The big yellow one is the 12 gauge shielded wire that I used to go down underneath the trailer and all the way back. That is an outdoor rated wire, and it's 12 gauge, so it's more, it can handle twice easy the current that this inverter can put out, and that's total, so it'll never burn out basically. That runs all the way to the back of the trailer, goes into the pantry plug in the outdoor kitchen, and then daisy chained off of that plug I used 14 gauge, 14 gauge house wire internally, so to wire up the plug that the fridge is going to be in plugged into. So I'm just crawling back in here. So I'm in the bunk area right now. Here is the plug for the pantry area where the yellow outdoor wire comes in all the way down there. Let's see if I can get some light down there. So let me see if I can hold this light somehow. That'll probably work. There we go. And should be able to see down there where the wires come in. It's a pretty small hole, so maybe that's why the manufacturer didn't seal it, or maybe it just got missed. I don't know. But there's the box for the pantry plug. Yellow wires going in, house wire coming out. I left a bit of a loop for both of those and then just zip tied them up here. I zip tied it in a way so that the wire can't be pulled back down through the floor of the trailer. And then I really wanted to run the wire between this wall, bracing wall, for the bunk, but it also separates for the storage area where I'm currently standing from the outdoor kitchen box, right? So I wanted to run it down in through there. The problem is there's several screws along the bottom that the threaded and pointy end of the screw is exposed. So I couldn't run this wire safely way down there and risk it chafing on those screws and eventually shorting out, causing a fire. And it gets really narrow up top here. So I could force this wall out and I could get the wire in there, but it was being pinched and I didn't like that either. It was my preferred method of running the wire because then it was invisible, and this space here is not visible. It's basically dead space. Same as the space back here is just dead space. So I end up having to run it through the paneling right here, and I drilled a hole just big enough to fit the wire through. It goes through the area where my hot water tank is, so again, just another utility area anyways. But then I had to run it into the area, like the storage bay area here. So I ran it up nice and tight. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna zip tie it tight against the wall or not. It's in there really tight because the holes are just big enough for the wire to fit through, plus it's zip tied on both ends. So I don't think there's any real risk there, but if I feel like there is, I'll end up running a couple of zip ties here just to tighten it up against the wall. Additionally, we also currently don't use the storage space, so it's not like it's really in the way of anything. And then it goes down here, and I left a hefty loop, way more than I actually really need. But if I got, I don't know, rewire for whatever reason, might make my life a little easier. And then it goes into the box for the plug for the fridge. And it's all wired in, ready to go. It's got power. I've tested it. It works great. All right. So now I'm going to get out of this tight little area here. This will take me just a minute, and I will show you the rest. Oh, and also, like, this 14 gauge is, again, its current rating, I think, was it was either 15 or 20 amp. I read it right on the wire. I don't remember. I want to say it was 20, but either way, it doesn't matter. The inverter puts out a max of about 9 to 10 amps, depending on if you use 110 or 120 as your power conversion divider. So, well, using 110, so taking, you know, the kilowatt inverter, so 1,000 watts divided by 110, puts out like 9 if I remember right, like 9.8 amps or something like that. So either way, that wire cannot be overloaded. It just ain't gonna happen. The inverter will air out well before that happens. Okay. And so then we go back up to the front here, and you'll notice that I didn't use that yellow wire and a wired-in plug again for the other plug. I used green extension cord. This is actually a 16 gauge extension cord. It's what I could get my hands on, but I needed an extension cord that had a molded plug end on it in order to be able to plug it into the inverter. There's just not enough gap between the two plugs on the inverter to use two of these wired in plugs. They're quite a bit thicker. So I went and bought a 15-foot extension cord and cut it to length and plugged it in this end, and then it runs, the wires both run in between the inverter and the charge controller there. And then it basically just runs over to this plastic box for the other plug, the plug that's right here that the fridge is currently plugged into. And it is 16 gauge wire. According to the plug or the extension cord manufacturer, the extension cord at 15 feet was rated for 13 amps. So again, the inverter can't put out 10 amps, right? So, and that's through both plugs on the inverter. So that little 3-foot length maybe with a 16 gauge wire isn't going to have a problem. It's not going to overheat. We'll overload the inverter again before we ever overload the wire. So it's not going to be an issue. And then that's the leftover extension cord, which I'm just going to use that wire and plug end, and I'm going to make an extension cord back out of it. And it'll be, I don't know, roughly about a 12-foot extension cord. So that's that. Like, it's complete. I'll show you the outside here again, now that it's actually fully done here. So we got, this is the 110 plug that was, or shore power plug, I guess would be more accurate, that was installed by the manufacturer. That is the inverter powered plug that I installed, and this is the fridge cabinet space. So the fridge is going to be plugged into there. The fridge itself, actually, through testing, uses about 45 to 50 watts after the initial startup. And even during the initial startup, it only peaks out at about 150, 200 watts for like all of a second or two. So we are well within the confines of any of the wiring and that 14 gauge wire that wires that plug for any type of draw that we're going to put on it. Obviously, that plug, once the fridge is in place, is not going to be accessible. So the only thing that's ever going to be plugged into it is that fridge. So, you know, we're going to be perfectly fine with that. And then in the little pantry space here in the outdoor kitchen, the left one there is the shore powered plug, and the right one is the inverted plug. And so, and that one has the 12 gauge wire running the length of the trailer to it. which again, depending on the spec sheet that I looked on, it was good for anywhere from 20 to 25 amps, depending on which spec sheet I went by. So basically, again, we're gonna very much overload that inverter before we ever overload that wire. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna work great for us. We're gonna get the outdoor kitchen fridge working when we're boondocking, which is all the time. And it's not just going to be sitting there being useless. So it's handy. I really liked it. Honestly, when we bought this trailer, I thought this little outdoor kitchen thing was a gimmick, but honestly, it's been fantastic, and one of the things I prefer most about the trailer. We always cook outside, eat outside, like do everything outside. Pretty much the trailer is used for changing clothes, going to bed, stuff like that. So you know, it kind of suits our type of camping and our lifestyle a lot better to have everything outside. And this way I don't have to bring out a table or anything to set up an outdoor kitchen like we were before. It's basically set up exactly how I wanted it at this point. So, and hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the bell so you get notifications, hit the like button so it gets shared to other people, and subscribe to the channel. You know, we're going to see more of this trailer. I am going to be doing more upgrades to it as time goes here. But this was one of the biggest ones so far. So other than that, hope you have a great time camping with your family and getting out there and just enjoying the bush, and have a great day. Thank you for watching.